3, 2, 1. All right, shoot. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So we're using metaphor because the Bible is metaphor. There's nothing that's God word or nothing that was, literal or anything like that. It's all metaphor to guide the human beings into a more loving and substantial way of existing. You see, if there wasn't the Garden of Eden, if there wasn't Adam and Eve in their primal state of perfection, then there would be no reason why God would afflict us with an ego. So therefore, the Bible has to create the baddie, the demon, the serpent to give us the ego. And then all of a sudden it's kind of like, well, God's perfect, we are perfect, but the ego via the serpent isn't perfect. Now, this is another beautiful illustration of what we are as human beings, because these people that wrote these books, they, without a doubt, were Gnostics. They were very, very wise people, and in the old days, they if they had a little bit of money, then they were most certainly privileged to have a lot of time on their hands. When you got a lot of time on your hands in the natural environment, you enter into the kingdom of God. You can just be sitting by a river as long as your belly's full and you're not freezing cold. Then you're liable to have out-of-body experiences. You're liable to have cosmic downloads and all different sorts of things. Those sort of things, with apparitions and the burning of bushes and snakes turning into sticks and all these sorts of things. Those sort of things will happen when the mind becomes very, very still and it becomes creative, you see, because the mind will create everything and anything. But when we discover that our minds are being contained by pressure and by expectation, then there's no room for the creative to come into it because we're under pressure, and that the right brain doesn't work under that pressure. Only the left brain works under that pressure. So therefore, we're working from the satanic energy instead of the God energy. And so, all these things, it's all metaphor, and it all describes the human being. But you see, what's happened is throughout the time, the only thing that's going on here, well, when in actual fact it isn't. What's going on is the cosmos, and it's all out there, but it's still all in here. But because we have intellectualized everything, and we've separated everything, and we divided everything, then everything seems so separate to us. And then when we have things that we can't explain, then you would go, whoa, that was a god, or all different sorts of things like this, when at the end of the day they're only manifestations and projections of our own consciousness. And so if we have dreams of encountering all different sorts of crazy beings, well, we wake up in the morning, we go, well, just a stupid dream. But if we have a daydream like that, it means so much to us, and we're going to write about it, we're going to tell people about it. You won't believe what happened to me. But nobody ever talks about dreams because they're kind of like they're embarrassed about stupid dreams. But in the old days, I'm pretty sure, the likes of Moses and all these people, they did speak about the apparitions that they had. And they did mean something to them. And there were powerful experiences. I've had a powerful experience where I'm just heavy breathing on the beach, and then like a figure like me, he looks almost exactly like me without the glasses, appeared in the clouds. And then I'm like, what the fuck? And it was there for like 30 seconds. And then he slowly went away. And I thought, can I bring that back again? I started doing this, with Wim Hof.
And you're not religious, right?
Sorry?
You said you're not religious, right?
No.
Yeah.
No, but what I
what's
saw.
What's your definition of religious, by the way? Because I get different definitions of this too, but
Yeah. Well, if we're going to be religious, then we need to follow a doctrine and a dogma and an idea.
Hmm.
And there needs to be rules to it. There has to be rituals pertaining to it and all those sort of things. So that's religion, and this is why I say I'm spiritual instead of religious, because I don't have any allegiance to any rituals whatsoever. And this is the premise of true Buddhism. In the initial stages of Buddhism, that's what was taught, that we're all God, we all manifest this thing. You know, they never spoke of being a god, other than the deity within you, consciousness within you. You are, everything that you should be. And via your works, you can become more or you can become less. You don't need other men to be subservient to. You don't need to give your energy to anything in the abstract. It's all you. But then you see what happened is, through the years, Buddhism separates into different sects, and then they start incorporating rules, regulations, and uh, criteria, which involves worshipping in a certain way and certain rituals, and that isn't true Buddhism. That's getting more and more in line with religions, and Buddhism isn't a religion, in its true form. And so I was
But
only
you don't
reading.
think? Do you think that not being religious leads to being religious? Like literally, like not trying not to be religious becomes a religion.
I
You
don't
get
know.
what I'm trying to say?
You give me an instantiation of that?
So let's say, for example, if somebody tries to throw an idea at you, but it doesn't coincide with yours, um, you say no because I'm not religious. Does it? Isn't that kind of being religious because you're holding on to a specific idea of yours, and that's kind of like not diverting from something else that you're hearing outside of yourself. Like literally, not trying not to be religious becomes a religion. You get what I'm saying? Like you're concretely rooted out of not being religious, and that becomes a religion. That's
Yeah, I
what I
think
mean.
I think there's a lot of truth in that, because if we try to protect and defend ourselves against evil
Hmm.
to such a degree, then we become that. We become whatever we put our energy into. And if we're always fearing God, fearing God, fearing God, then I'm pretty sure that we will start to manifest all different sorts of demons and spooks, to give our wayward minds something actually to fear. You keep telling the
Hmm.
mind it should be afraid, 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 and it's going to look around and go, well, of what? And so, therefore, it's going to be creating something, just like we create things in our dreams, just like we create scenarios in our mind. You see, if you live a very tranquil life, like I do, and I don't see anybody except Mr. Nobody once a fortnight, and my daughter once a week. I don't see anybody, and I don't engage with anybody. Maybe a brief bit of chat in the gym, but other than that, I'm on my own. And so, what I find happens, because I'm in the bliss all the time, my mind becomes restless and it starts to invent scenarios. And I find
Hmm.
myself having arguments, stupid arguments, with some people I know, or some people I did know, or fictitious people. And I go, what's going on here? As the mind, it's bored. It's got to fucking do something. It can't be in the bliss all the time. You see, that's why we can't be in this heaven whilst we're here on the earth, because we have an ego and it needs to be engaged constantly. And it hates it when you set it aside and you go into your meditations. Over years, it will accept, a certain period, half an hour or an hour. Any more than that, it comes back online and goes, I'm fucking bored of this now. Come on, let's do this
Huh.
and let's do that. And you have to give into it. That's what
Hmm.
happens. And so we can experience the bliss. I can go into the kingdom of God for 1 hour a day, maximum, before the ego, the serpent, calls me back out again.
What's your definition of evil?
The antithesis of love.
How would you word it? Like word it a way that instead of like saying it's the opposite of love, like how would you word the definition of evil? What does
Well,
it
I can
mean?
explain an occasion when there's been lots of occasions when I've actually been in the clasp of evil. Um, terrifying, demoralizing, everything which is opposite to life. It's the darkest, the most terrifying, the most lonely, the height of suffering and anguish and all those sort of things. Whereas in the opposite to that, you've got a free mind, you've got bliss, you've got open space, you've got light and brightness and warmth and, all those sort of things. And
Yeah.
so,
So the opposite to life. So you're saying death. Again, I'm dissecting the mentality because I want to know where. So death. What do you consider death? Do you consider death the bad side of the force and life being the good side of the force?
well, death is an end to life. And if we knew what was the other side of death, then maybe we wouldn't fear it. This is why people fear it, because it's the unknown. We don't know. Albeit many people have told us that when their bodies physically have died for a short period, then their consciousness, their spirit never died. And it was wonderful and blissful, but not everybody tells those stories. Some people do tell hellish stories, and it's not all roses on the other side. And so when we look at death, we look at finality. It's over. And it's kind of like, wow, I'm kind of enjoy being conscious. And if I think about my consciousness is never going to be here, then I don't think that's something to look forward to. I think that's the end of a wonderful relationship that I had on planet Earth. But if you can think that death is just a transition and you continue, your consciousness or spirit continues in another variety of life form, wow, I'm all up for that. I love a bit of travel, you know?
Yeah, the reason I asked that is because, uh, you said we don't know what's on the opposite side of life, but a lot of people are living this life and they don't even know life to begin with because they don't know what their purpose is. They don't know anything about themselves. They're more disoriented in this life than actual animals in this planet. Like you got birds, you got even like whatever wild animals you see, they're basically perfectly comfortable in their environment, yet we're the only ones that don't know what to do in this lifetime. Yet we say this is actually good, and then we would say death is bad. But I feel like we have the opportunity to know what death is without actually experiencing a physical death. You get what I'm saying? And when we're able to really grasp life without fear, because again, it comes down to being born again of the Father. The Father's authority. The Father is basically surpassing humanity. Humanity overall is feminine energy, including white people, black people, Chinese people. Humanity is is feminine energy. When you become one, the individual, your soul, and you surpass and overcome humanity, you're the one. You're the man. That's why people say you're the man. You get what I'm saying? You could be the man as a cocky individual where you can think from your brain where there's no filters there. You know what I'm saying? You could think from your cock. You become a cocky nigga. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, it just comes down to overcoming humanity, and then you basically you're the one. You're Neo in the Matrix, right? um, when it comes down to understanding, let's say life or even death, we're having deaths all the time. You could let go of something, you could break up in a relationship, you could basically go to sleep, you're experiencing a certain level of death, but we're just looking at it as a mundane activity. We're looking at it as just activities that we just go through the motions on. But the same way, they say be in the now. A lot of people just, they fall asleep. You could actually practice going to sleep. I've been in this point where I can actually experience myself falling asleep, where I observe my body falling asleep, and I'm going exactly through that transition, and I can actually feel what it feels like to actually slip into that realm. You get what I'm saying? Without losing consciousness.
Yeah.
The same way some people may be sleeping, but you can actually become aware of you slowly, gradually waking up. And before you come right back into this form that we're in, you can actually slip into experiences of things that you may not even be aware of. I slipped into, I think, a clam because I was like in the water on the shoreline. but
Yeah.
I'm experiencing the waves and I'm experiencing some water, falling on me. And it was so freaking lucid, but it was just right before I woke up. You know what I'm saying? Into this form again. But I
Yeah.
was able to slip into like different layers of whatever outside things that I've created with my perception and my reality. You know
Yeah,
what I'm saying?
that's a very good point, and I know exactly what you're saying.
Hmm.
Because this transitional state that we go into with our consciousness, when we lose consciousness of this reality, and we slip in between the world where we're still lucid, and we see all different sorts of manifestations and brilliant, beautiful things. There's a beautiful feeling to that there because the ego isn't there. The ego's asleep effectively, but the mind is
Right.
playing. And then there's wonderful things, and we can manifest into all different sorts of things, just like you say. I'm absolutely with you. Because you are picturing yourself with the water and you're feeling the sensations. Then all of a sudden, your consciousness slips into something which would be there naturally, a clam, and then the water comes over the clam, and you're in the clam, and you close down, and all of a sudden that your consciousness is experiencing that, and that's the beautiful thing. And when we have things like that, we absolutely know that we are everything. And I was on some mushrooms on one occasion, and I was confronted with a deer, and it just looked at me, and it was a frosty day, and as it breathed, air was snorting out,
Yeah. Yeah.
in mist and everything, and it was looking
Hmm.
straight at me, and I was looking straight at that, and then all of a sudden I found myself inside his head breathing like that animal. And I'm like, fuck,
Yeah.
I was that deer. I was that fucking deer. And it's
That's what
kind
I'm talking about. You see, you kind of become what you think it's outside of you. You become that. You get what I'm
yeah,
saying? And you realize that it's all you. At like
it's
even
all
the
you.
Jesus figure, it's all you. Everything
Yeah,
is because the moment you surrender and drop the ego, you can observe your ego online, but you can observe yourself dropping it at the same time. It's actually like a lot of people. It's hard when you're in this waking state to like let's say somebody pissed you off, and then it's hard to that's why they say it takes the bigger person to just let it go because you really are the bigger person. The ego
yeah,
is very small. You get what I'm saying? So yeah, it's like when you could do that, you realize that it's really not a big deal. Like you don't know what the anger is gone, the fear is gone. There's really nothing there. It's just you become strong. You feel better. You feel stronger. You
yeah.
know,
And
like you
so,
really feel like the bigger person.
yeah, I mean, it's this moment in time. Mother of my daughter, her mother is aged, and she's going through all these things that people go through when they're getting close to death. Forgetting everything, falling over, pissing and shitting
Hmm.
herself, and this and the other. Well, mother of my daughter has been looking after her mother, for many years, and because of the stress levels, then she has almost become a nervous wreck, and to the point whereby she's shaking, she's nervous, she needs medication because she's fretting about the mother. Well, what would happen if this, and if I'm not there, this happens, and oh, she fell down here when I was with her, but what when I'm not with her? And of course, they've got cameras in the house and they've got screens at home monitoring. So when the mother, my daughter, isn't at her mother's. She's looking at the screens, so it's a full-time job, and it's uh, a variety of anxiety which is destroying her as a person. So I bumped into one of our mutual friends today, and we spoke about this. And this friend said, "Oh, she's bringing it all on herself." And I'm like, well, we bring everything on ourselves because it's the way we feel and think about things. And what's the alternative? Just to say, oh, I can't be doing with this old woman. Just let the council, the government deal with her. Well, if you're emotionally attached, then you got love, and there's an obligation, and so we're drawn into these obligations, and we find that the obligation is destroying our lives. What do you do? It's a fact of life. It's a variety of humanism that you have to do it. And so, yeah, to experience these things whereby there's a whole bunch of things we'd rather be doing, but our mind is captivated by the guilt and by the shame if we didn't do it, and all these different connotations. So when we look at how the world is, well, everybody's like that to more or lesser degrees. And is it any wonder that we consider that we're in the Kali Yuga? We are actually in hell because nobody's free. Nobody's mind is free. The only free mind is the mind that has just walked away from society. They've gone into a cave, or gone into a monastery or something where they've only got a certain obligation. They dig the garden up a little bit to plant a little bit, and then they do the meditation and whatever they do to escape society. It's being a human that we all want to escape. And, in the book, it's a subject that I broach. We're all trying to get back into the womb. That's what we want. We remember the bliss of the beauty and the warmth and the comfort of the womb. And then, shock, horror, we're exited out into this noisy, cold, nasty environment, and we spend our whole lives in it, unconsciously just wishing, hoping to get back there. And so we have to wonder what this life is. A very bizarre, like nightmare, to be fair, unless you find that space which detaches yourself from the nightmare. We wake up from the nightmare and we realize that if we do this, if we do that, we are going to be living that fucking hell. So we stop doing all that stuff and we retreat back as much as we can, like a clam, like a hermit crab, or something of that nature, and we live the best quality we can. But to do that, we have to sever all connections with all other human beings because we don't want to get drawn into it. We don't want to be obliged to do this. We don't want to feel guilty if we don't do that. They've got all this sorts of stuff going. And
Eh, So,
what do you
Aaron, do
make
you
of
think this is? I agree. I mean, I'm looking at it, but I got this question to ask you out of what you just said. Do you think this is a prison planet, or do you think this is a school for humanity?
Well, I mean, it could very easily be both. The way I look at my life, you see, it's all about disposition. It's all about perspective because I've had lots of things in my life that people would consider to be heinous, and they would shy away at any given opportunity. The last thing they would ever want to encounter was something like I've encountered in my life. But all of these things that I've encountered, bordering on hell, actually being in hell, and all those, I go, well, I know what hell's like now. I know
Mm,
what heaven's like, and I know what much of the in between is like. So I'm more whole, I'm more rounded, I'm more accomplished as a spirit in this dimension. Whether it's a prison planet, whether it's a school, whatever it is, I'm pretty well up there, in the top class due to the level of experience that I've had. And so if that's anything to go on, well, maybe I'm doing the right thing. I don't think people that live in the same village and never leave the country, and they marry the first girl or guy that they meet and they live it safe, they haven't done what they came here to do. I don't think anybody's come to this planet to do that shit.
mm,
This planet is about the extremes, heaven and hell, because this particular cosmos has those attributes. And so, of
yeah.
course, this experience is going to reflect those attributes. It's unavoidable. And if you spend your life at one end of the spectrum, whether it's heaven or hell, well, you've not lived. You've not enjoyed the full spectrum.
What is your definition of like like how you hear these people say like in the divine feminine and the divine masculine energy. What's your take on that? Like what's your definition of that? What do you get out of these people who talk about that topic?
The divine masculine and the divine feminine. Well, I mean, the closest I would get to those subjects would be Jungian psychology, with the anima, the animus, the masculine, the female of us, and I'm very in touch with both. and they have to be equally balanced. And so, if we balance the divine masculine and the divine feminine, and when you look at the divinity, well, it's the best possible version of these. And so, my whole breakdown, the reason why I was sent on this spiritual journey is because I was completely out of balance. I was all testosterone, I was all ego. I never had any estrogen. I never had any compassion. I never had sympathy or all these sort of things. I'm just like, it's a dog eat dog world. It's Darwinian world. It's survival of the fittest. And I'm going to be the strongest. And, I'm going to be the best. And I'm going to survive. All this sort of stuff. But it was a road to ruin because I was out of balance. And so I came crashing down. And when I came crashing down, I had this vision when I was fast asleep of two angels. And my consciousness woke up in the most beautiful and pristine
I
and
can hear
loving,
you. Okay.
yeah, loving
I can hear
room.
you.
I was in heaven. If heaven exists, I was there. And I never had a body. I was pure consciousness. And then I gazed down and I saw these two angels. And one was with wings and one was without wings. The masculine one had wings and the female never had any wings. And so, via Jungian psychology, I deciphered what that meant. And that meant that my feminine side couldn't take flight because her wings had been clipped. And so I then resolved that I have to get back in balance. I have to regrow these feminine wings so the feminine side of me can take flight once again. And it took about 12 years before I accomplished that. And then I found myself supremely balanced in the divine feminine and masculine, the yin and yang, and so I know what all these things are about. I know what these mythological stories pertain to. I know what biblical stories pertain to. I know what all the religious stories pertain to, because they are all written about human existence. Because we can't write about anything else. We can only write about what we know and what we are, and we project the cosmos from our consciousness. And
How
so
did you go about? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were done. Now,
I
guys.
was just going to say, yeah, it's very important to get balance with the masculine yin and yang and feminine.
How does one or a person like you balance out their feminine energy? How did you go about balancing that?
Well, by softening the ego, by being more loving, endearing, compassionate, giving, all of the things that I wasn't. For the first 7 years, I cried every single time I watched a film. I would have this routine whereby I would read for 10 or 12 hours a day, and I would watch a movie or two starting from 9 p.m. And every movie I ever watched, tears were streaming down my face because these movies, um, they were cathartic. They were like psychoanalytical sessions for me.
Hmm.
And the movie was the psychoanalyst, and he was presenting me with humanisms and asking me, do you have these humanisms, Aaron? What would
Hmm.
you do in a situation like this? Do you feel like this or do you feel like that? And, every single movie, it just had me crying a river. Literally, I cried a river until in the end, I cried so many tears that I washed away the incalcitrant, stubborn ego and mostly dissolved it. And then I was fertile ground for the next 7 years to start to germinate with the fine attributes of what it is to be a spiritual person. Because when we have the dark night of the soul, when we crash crash catastrophically. We go into the deepest of depressions, and from there, our ego has to absolutely give up because it can no longer claim that it has hold of the helm, guiding the ship, because it doesn't. And so the ego goes AWOL. It dissolves because it's got no power. It's proven itself to be a complete failure. And so then, whilst the ego is abandoned ship, something else comes online. And that's when your spirit comes online. And that's when the spirit slowly takes hold of the tiller and starts to guide you in another direction. And
How did you?
guides
How
you,
did you? How did? Oh yeah, yeah, okay, okay.
guides you into
I
the
thought you were
feminine
done. How did you balance out the masculine energy?
by destroying it, by
The
depleting.
masculine energy.
Yeah, yeah,
So
but
you think that do you think that the masculine and feminine energy are opposite of each other?
well, no, you see, there's no opposite in this dimension. There's only wholeness. We have an
Hmm.
illusion of opposites, and we have to consider opposites for us to have this experience. We have to have hot, cold, day and night, love and hate, and all these sort of things. Otherwise, there'd only be one thing, and that would be complete bliss. God, that's what
So
we are.
what? Why did you destroy the masculine energy then?
Well, I didn't destroy it totally, but I most certainly had to diminish it. I had to tear down 50% of it and make room for 50% of feminine energy to come into the yin and yang, because I was all yang and I had no room for the yin. And so,
Hmm.
therefore, then I had to dissolve half of that and then slowly, like a pearl, like an oyster, creating a pearl out of a grain of sand and 2 grains of sand, a little bit, a little bit, a little bit, until it manifests into a beautiful pearl. And after 7 years, I had diminished the ego, and then it was another 7 years before I then was growing. 14 years I've been on this journey.
So here's the thing, though. I wouldn't say destroy the masculine energy. I think that whatever you thought was masculine energy was really feminine energy. You just confused it for masculine energy because masculine energy would always have, a certain order over, or like a guidance over the feminine energy as far as guiding it out of the hellish state that it's in, the negative state. So feminine energy would be negative energy, whereas masculine would be positive energy. But positive
Really?
energy,
That's kind of
yeah,
like intuitively inverted.
it's well. Let me explain. So this way, to see if I can make sense of it and see if you agree with it. But positivity is basically, I could look at that as the acid side of chemistry, whereas the feminine energy is more the alkaline side of energy. But at the end of the day, the alkaline side of energy is void of life, whereas the positive side is life because that's more the hot side of energy. It's also the building blocks of life. That's how you get amino acids, right? But if you have a weak foundation, such as the feminine energy, you don't have a strong foundation to build off your reality here, which is the realm of lights, which is the masculine energy or the patriarchal system that we're in. But feminism basically is the evil side of the force. However, when I look at it as far as evil, I look at the word evil as inverted, where if we're looking to things outside of ourselves, right, we're looking for things that are basically part of the illusion, which is the realm of lights. But the masculine energy is basically what we're dealing with when we're dealing with the realm of lights. That's why people say, the light beam, and then I want to get into the story of Adam and Eve and why there was even stories about how Adam's first wife was Lilith, which is, a dark, the dark side
Yeah.
of the feminine energy, right?
Yeah.
So
So let me just ask you this one.
yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Mhm.
do you consider then that when the writers of the Bible were demonizing Eve for leading Adam astray with the fruit, that was the negative energy, the feminine?
Yes, that was the
Yeah.
feminine energy that was always there within Adam. You get what I'm saying? And that's the emotions. Like you said something that was very powerful before, because you said that when you were balancing out your feminine energy, you had to basically surrender your ego, right?
Yeah.
So that's basically what you did as far as like surrendering to the ego, meaning like you didn't let the emotions get the best of you. You didn't
Yeah, yeah,
let
yeah,
the
yeah.
emotions take control. So you basically, that's the masculine energy, having control over the emotions. That's the virtue of man, is to not let emotions get the best of him, right? So
Right.
when you're looking at it from that perspective, like the masculine side, okay, would be the guiding force. But if the masculine energy, right, is experiencing any of these emotions, and you say you would have to destroy part of your masculine energy because of that, is because you were never really in masculine energy. It's basically, a lot of people confuse that and think it's masculine energy, but that's really, a man should never be complaining or never be, yeah, and we're human. I mean, we all do it, but I'm saying though, like masculine energy is not these. It's meant to take order, control, authority. That's why they say be born again of the father. The father figure is the head of the household for that reason. But that's all metaphor for being the head, the headlights, the guiding force. You get what I'm saying? And then you got the negative energy, which is what's in darkness. Whatever is in dark, you bring darkness out of into the light, and that's how you start. You could be a light bearer, or you could be somebody who blinds people with light. It just depends on you which way you're pointing the light. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
But
Is there
here's,
any?
I'm
Is
gonna
there?
finish up. I'm
Okay.
gonna finish up right now. I just want to make one last little point here. So when we talked about this whole Adam and Eve, and his first wife was Lilith, right? And that's like the evil, dark aspect of the feminine energy, right? Even that has polarities, because you look at Eve, and they say that it was pulled out of the rib of Adam, but I believe that that was always in Adam. He just collapsed it into existence with the actual word. Like everything was created with the word. Like I said in my previous videos, that your mouth is a vagina, right? So you bring creation, right? So when you're having sex with people, right, you create a baby and the baby comes out the womb. Whatever you're spouting out, depending on what intellectual properties you're taking, again, the tree of, the knowledge of good and evil, or even food, what you eat is information, because what you eat, literally, your body becomes a product of everything you're eating in actuality. But if
Yeah.
you become present with the stuff you eat, then you transmute whatever you're putting in. This is where the whole concept of prayer and the whole blessing comes in, where you basically merge whatever you're putting into your system, and you transmute whatever negative energies. We're in a realm of creation, and we're in a realm that's, it's ran on polarity. So it's up to you to be the guiding force to basically transmute that energy that comes in. Same thing with when you see, you don't just, if you're a female, you don't just sleep with anybody. You download that individual into your system to begin with. You get what I'm saying?
So
Um,
let me just run this one by you very
yeah,
quickly.
yeah, yeah,
The
yeah.
certain interpretations from the Garden of Eden with the
Mm-hmm,
eating of the forbidden fruit, and it
mm-hmm,
states that because the fruit was evil because it pertained to Satan, when Adam and
mm-hmm,
Eve ate from it, they then became evil, both of them.
mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
and so they both became evil under the auspice of Eve, who was communicating with the serpent, and then decided that she wanted to go against God's will, and then
Mm-hmm,
encouraged Adam to do it also. So, this masculine feminine energy, which is kind of like, got something to do with alchemy, it's got something to do with Greek mythology, it's got lots to do with, the moon being feminine and the sun being masculine, and all this sort of stuff, and Kabbalah greatly. I don't know a lot about the masculine and feminine aspects of things, but I think there's something most certainly to be said. And it's curious because it seems to me it's counterintuitive from what we would
mm-hmm,
think is masculine and
mm-hmm.
feminine. Is there any
Right.
videos or books in particular which you have learned the most from?
So when you look at, for example, we're in a realm where we're observing polarities, right? But we would categorize it as bad and good, acid, alkaline, hot and cold, right? But this is where we come down to: is truth objective, or is truth subjective? What do you think?
Well, I mean, I think everything has to be subjective because it all comes from within.
Hmm.
And we
So
we project onto the fiction of the objective world.
then now there's also movements that talk about, I've seen countless debates where people say it's truth objective or it's truth subjective. But I look at, when you look at truth being objective, right? It's like you're trying to follow a one world government. You're trying to follow a one world system. But in that way of perceiving things, it's all misunderstood. You get what I'm saying? Like I've watched certain people talking about masculine and feminine energy, or just even feminism, or let's say toxic masculinity and whatnot. It's all the same energy. It's just being shown in different ways where people are misinterpreting it. You get what I'm saying? One thing that I could tell you is that a man can never be a woman because it's two totally different sides of the spectrum, right? They're two totally different things. Acid and alkaline are two totally different things. We would have to say, well, if we're running on a realm that we say one thing is bad, one thing is good, well, one person can like, hot. One person can like cold better. You know how many people I've heard say, "Oh, I hate hot climate." Some people say, me personally, I love the warm climate. I can't stand cold climates." You get what I'm saying? But there's other
Yeah,
people who say, "I love." They feel in their element when they're in cold weather, but they feel outside. They can't even like stand it in the hot weather,
yeah.
right? So one thing is bad, one thing is good, but it just depends on the individual's
But you see,
experience.
when we look at all this stuff, it's all depending from what vantage we're looking at. Now, if a scientist say to us, "Is the truth subjective or objective?" then they would say, "Well, the truth is objective because it's an objective world. It's a physical world, and I've got two eggs here, and if I put another egg to the two eggs, then I've got three eggs. That's an objective truth."
Right.
Um, but then I would say to them, from a philosophical perspective, that, well, it's all conjured up in the mind, so it's a subjective truth because, there is no objective world because you as a scientist, you are maintaining that there's a physical world when there's another strain of you scientists, the quantum physicists, who have told us that there is no physical world for the past 100 years, and yet you're not accepting it here. You're still proclaiming that there's an objective world. Now, what's
Mm-hmm.
happening in science at this moment in time is, again, is very, very important, and it's well overdue. People like
Mm-hmm.
Neil deGrasse Tyson are speaking about it. Sean Carroll, the theoretical physicist who, um, is it Alan Green, the people that speak about the quantum mechanics and everything, Brian Greene. All these people that they're saying, well, look, we've been looking at what we were told was an objective world for, all these years, since Newton. And even though, Max Planck and says there's nothing called matter and this, that, and the other, and yet we accepted it, with a grimace, and we tried to refute it, but we couldn't. 120 years on now, we're finally having to accept it and bring it to the party. There is no physical world. What the fuck are we
Mm-hmm.
going to do about that? And in actual fact, it's our consciousness that creates a non-physical world. And so we're going to get into a very, very dubious and messed up place because to be a human being, we have to believe in the physical world. But all of our brilliant brains now, the scientists and everything, they can't continue in the illusion of the physical world. They have to say
Mm-hmm.
all of our figures and all of our experiments, they lead to the same place, which is a non-physical world. Where are we going to
Hey,
go
so
from
then
that?
with that saying, how do you think that in the story of Adam and Eve, how do you think that Eve, when they say that Eve came out the rib of Adam, how would you interpret that?
Well, it's all allegory.
I
And,
know that. I mean, how would you interpret it out of that allegory? That's what I mean.
oh, how would I? I just think it's very low level illustration for primitive people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, God created Adam and it was good, and then he thought that Adam was lonely. Well, why would he be lonely? He's got you. He's got all that he needs. Why are you now? It would only be lonely if you wanted him to be lonely. So you are doing the Hegelian dialectica. You are creating a problem and then creating the solution. If there was no loneliness in Adam, he wouldn't need an Eve. And so we looked at it like this, and it's just stupid until we get our heads around, well, look, we're human beings. We don't know how the fucking hell we got here. We could have been, spliced by Anunnaki or all these different sort of things. But the fact of it is, some people a few thousand years ago started to think kind of reasonably, rationally, and started to write down illustrations for the ignorant masses to, have some sort of allegiance with, which will be beneficial to them to stop them killing each other, basically.
Well, do you see how you just said like Adam? He created Adam, and Adam was good, which means that the woman would be bad. You get what I'm saying? You see how we have to like we're
And the woman
separating it
was
into
bad. And the
polarity.
woman was
The
bad.
woman was bad. Exactly. That's why I said like the woman being the negative side of, and women are attractive. Drama is attractive, but it just depends because I even said in negative in the feminine energy there's polarities. You know what I'm saying? You could be the nurturing alkaline side of energy. You could be the dramatic negative drama side of energy, which draws people in. Drama draws people in. But there's why I said like you see how people say merrily, 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 life is but a dream. See, in that state, I remember I would really this is where I'm leaning more toward on everything.
Hang on.
Can you hear me now?
Hmm.
Okay. I had a call coming in, but I ignored it. So you know how people say merrily, merrily, life is but a dream, right? So in actuality, right, I think that everything was just on a higher vibration at that state. And you know how in dreams, normally when you think of something, it just manifests there. So I believe that this feminine energy was already in Adam and it manifests upon the emotion of whatever it is that he was experiencing in that state that he was in. And it manifested as a woman. And then through God, God created everything with word, right? Uh, God created the head. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. So that's why I was getting toward that because I feel like things were just manifesting a lot quicker at that state. So a part of Adam, right, manifested in actuality the same way people just appear. How did you just appear in a dream? Like when you're in a dream, right? Sometimes you meet people that you never seen in your intimate connections with in state and I never even met them in my life. How did they just appear there? Were they ever really born? Were they? It's just manifested right out of my thoughts and out of my whatever subconscious is feeding to me. But in that state, there is no as the vibration is not as low as it is here, so it just manifests instantly. Where here things take time to manifest. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes even physical work has to take place for you to manifest a physical child. You know what
Yep.
I'm saying? But in that state, I feel like everything was like a dream. Merrily, 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 everything was a dream. And I feel like things just happened to come into place. And then the more things started to come into place, as far as like, you know, even black people, I feel like black people are mad. That's why they say that there's a lot of bunch of black people talking online how they created the white man. And out of that dark space, the dark energy, like I even said, Lilith was Adam's first, wife.
Right.
Yeah, I mean that's the dark side of that feminine energy. You get what I'm saying? So yeah, out of that dark space came a light being, a person of a lighter color. But
Right.
then
Okay.
even dark people, black people are still light beings though. You see what I'm saying? Like it's still in the same. You could look at it as saying, oh, but black people are now the feminine side of energy because their dark color is shade, but they're still a individual light being because they're manifested here in this reality. They're just expressing themselves in a darker shade as the feminine energy.
At
You
the
get what
end
I'm
of the
saying?
day,
Whereas the white
it's
person,
just pigmentation, isn't it? That's all it
it's
is.
just pigmentation. But
It,
what that person coming into this existence as that color, colors are frequencies, sounds are frequencies, right? So that
yep.
person is of a certain frequency or a certain vibrational state they were in that manifests in that in this reality as a colored person. You get what I'm
Hmm.
saying? Or it could be even as far as handicapped people or people with disabilities. It's just a frequency or a disability you that came out of whatever dark space that energy signature was in. You get what I'm saying? What
Yeah.
do you think of all that? Those are all
Well,
things that just kind of like pop in when I was like meditating.
yeah. I mean, the whole thing about vibration is absolutely fascinating. And it was only a couple of nights ago I was watching something again on cymatics,
Mm-hmm.
when scientists have thin sheets of metal and they sprinkle salt on them, and then they run the bow of a violin bow
Mm-hmm.
down, and that way they run vibration through
Mm-hmm.
that thin plate. Then shapes are created, and the same shapes are created with the same frequency, and all different
Mhm.
sorts of frequencies. You see what they do? They sprinkle this salt on like this. Yeah, I don't know if you've ever seen the videos, and then they run the bow
Oh
down.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
or
I seen that.
they can direct high pitched noises, from a speaker or something. But as long as they're on the free frequency, all of a sudden, all this soul will just go bam. It will go
Yeah.
into a specific variety of pattern, which is very, very intricate and
Mhm.
incredible. And one of them was like the decoration or design of a turtle or tortoise's back. One of
Right.
them is exactly that. So when we're looking at nature to ask how things are created, well, we see it's all vibration. And then when we, listen to what Nikola Tesla was always saying, if we want to understand this cosmos, then we've got to think along the lines of vibration, and
Energy
so
and
energy and vibration, yeah. And so that's
frequency.
what this thing is. That's what quantum physics tell us it is. Everything at its fundamental basis is vibration. It all comes out
Right.
of vibration in different manifestations. And when we
And
look
it
at,
comes out of chemistry. No, if you look at it, chemistry, it needs a masculine and feminine, and then you're the neutral that grounds that energy, and then you're expressing it here in this reality.
yeah, and so we look at all of these wonderful things, and when we start to get our heads around frequency and we start to see how frequency changes the structure and the vibration and the interaction of everything, it's kind of like, whoa, that gets pretty spooky, because then, of course, we
Yeah.
get into the realms of some sort of mischief, what the world's masters are supposed to be trying to do with all these satellites. They want to send down a vibration to control our frequency. And, if you read any of David Icke's books, then he'll tell you that Saturn's been doing that, ever since the existence of man.
Mhm.
They've been,
Right.
controlling us by a certain frequency. And when we're on a certain frequency of thought, we will enter into mostly the dark side. I mean, this Kali Yuga here is heavy. It's dark. It's depressing. It's all work and no play. And so, if there's a benevolent God, you think, well, he's got something wrong here. It's all about faith. It should be 90% pleasure and 10% work. Why isn't the
Mhm.
world like that? There's something gone very, very wrong. We look at the wages and we think, well, everyone's on minimum bare wage. They can barely survive. Why can't we just earn enough money in one day? Why can't we just work one day and have 6 days off? Would it work that way? Would human societies be able to function? I wonder. I seriously do question how the world could be any other way.
I just feel like even in that aspect, like you just said, why can't wages go up and whatnot? This is what I'm talking about. Like the virtue of man, creativity, being able to find creative ways to make more money, like in this crazy, chaotic world, which is basically you can make it a heaven or a hell. That's why I asked you if you think this was a prison planet or was this a
What do you
school.
think about that? What do you think about that?
About what is it a prison planet or
Yeah.
not? Well, there's people who, if they feel like they're trapped in their body. I know a few people who are actually feeling like they're trapped in their body, and that's basically their awareness of. It's more or less like I look at it like this: conscious awareness of vibration, of the vibrational state you're in, is the key, because when you feel right, that's a feminine thing. But if you can endure, that's a masculine trait. Your job is to endure and be able to overcome the burdens of the. That's why when people say, "Oh, I had a near-death experience," they said that in that state they felt super light. But it's because you literally carry the weight of the world on your shoulders, because this is your world, like you're creating it. But how do you make order out of the chaos of this feminine planet that we're in? Because this is why they call it Mother Earth. Humanity is also the feminine energy. That's why I said when you become an individual, you are the man. And this could be in a feminine or masculine way. I mean, I'm talking about in a gender way now. It could be man or woman. You get what I'm saying? It's just taking authority of your life, taking control of your finances, of your perception about things, without complaining, without pointing fingers, without feeling like you're blaming things outside of you. You created this whole thing. Like the government of the planet that you see out here is your perception. Like your perception is the government for the cells that you inhabit in your body, and your cells are expressed based on your perception, right? So when you change your perception, you do that by changing your mind, which is why I started the video saying your mind is God. You are basically taking control of the wheel. You're changing the feeling that you have. You're transmuting it by taking actions that are taking you into a positive step forward. Even hatred, let's say all these things that you're in. Let's say if you're in a state where you hate your situation so much, well, you can just sit down and just die, or you can hate it so much that you can actually force some type of change. That's why the way you change is through trauma, repetition, and symbolism, right? So you're aware of the trauma, right? You now make something symbolically, mean something to you, and you change your life, right? Like what do you mean? Do you matter? Do you have self love? Do you feel, because life will only give you what you deserve. It's not going to give you what you want. You get what I'm saying? You think
Mm,
you know what you want sometimes, but then some people say, why does this happen to me? Well, you're there because of the actions, the mentality, and the state of being you're in. That's what life gives to you. Because life in general, we could call it the universe, God, or whatever it is. There is no feeling and emotions about you, right? It's just giving you whatever you're putting out. So if you're putting whatever out, it's not looking at it as bad or good. You're just getting more of what you're thinking about back in return, right? If you think of nothing, then you'll get nothing. You'll just go through the motions. You'll be just a regular fucking sheep human in a fucking farm. But if you decide to, you know, put light on your problems, becoming the father, becoming the head of the household, you're putting light into something that's in darkness. Now you're becoming the authority figure. You're being born again there of the father. That's a form of death of your previous you to now put life into something that is the new you. That's a death right there. Just like when you die, right? If you believe in this reality so much that you're human and you are not the authority figure, then you will just manifest into a human again. This is why I feel like the whole reincarnation cycle is
mhm.
a mental state too. You know what I'm saying? But how could you fathom anything beyond the physical if you've never been beyond the physical, right? Well,
Yes.
think of energy, frequency, and vibration. You could be basically anything you want. You could create a spaceship in the astral realms. You could create the big, and you could live there. You can live there because there's no limits to your imagination. You could fly like Superman, whatever it may be. But how lucid it becomes is just how strong your focus is. But people's focuses are so much here in this physical realm because this is what matters more to them. So because it matters to them so much, energy flows where attention goes, that your reality manifests into materiality in this realm based on your attention. The biggest currency on the planet is attention. That's why the news media, marketing, they fight for your attention, and they pay billions of dollars for that, right? It's
Yep.
because they keep you here as a battery. If you become aware that you're not human, you can't come back as a human. The only way you surpass humanity is looking at the planets, the stars, the energy, astrology, and you created all that as a blueprint for you to manage and swim yourself as a GPS in the seas, or the current seas of this planet,
Yeah.
which is basically you, you know. But people can't step outside of that bubble because they can't think any bigger than that, because they're just not using that. And everybody has the ability to do it, they're just not using it. It's kind of like having a sports car and not really giving it the full potency of whatever you got out of that car. You're just basically using the basic mechanics of it, but not the full potency of it, or a supercomputer.
Yes.
Like, how do you think the pyramids were built? Why do we have these things? And then they give you the stories. They tell you this is how it is, and you buy into it. Like sledge ramps, slaves fucking pick those rocks up and move them 600 miles, and you believe that goofy ass shit? Like,
Yeah.
why can't you think and question reality and be like, that doesn't make sense, right? Well, then you would think, oh, maybe aliens. But then look again, putting things outside of yourself as something bigger than you, creating something here, and you still don't see aliens. Why can't you say, we did it, and we had a way of doing it? We just forgot how to do it because we depended on the new phones. So we forgot about, like, look at herbology, right? Once upon a time, we healed ourselves in different ways than we do now. We use herbs, we use castor oil, we use different things, like even turpentine from like pine trees, right? The pine tar to heal parasites, right? But we stopped doing that because now we depend on pharmaceuticals. So the new generations that come in, we never pass that information down to them, right? So then when the old generation dies, right? The new generation never even heard of the old ways of like healing. So they'll be like, what the fuck? They pine tar out of the tree? Or
Yeah.
or herbs? No, we got pharmacies.
Yeah.
Oh, they hunted? No, but we got foods in the supermarket. Oh, we built pyramids? Yeah, we were able to fucking like with our mind project things and move these stones with vibration, frequency, and sounds, and we used our body as in ways where we were able to have a metaphysical experience, but yet merged that into physicality and built these pyramids. Oh, that was possible. Damn, I thought we had bulldozers and fucking like these caterpillar trucks. But how come they can't replicate that now? I thought we were like more advanced technology. So you're saying that we have ancient lost technology? No, it's lost because we left it in the back, or supposedly because, again, history doesn't exist. You know what I'm saying? In my perception, in my reality, and the way I see things, nothing existed before the day I was born. Everything started the moment I was born. It's just that the way everything is set up, it's set up for the individual to figure themselves out and figure out that there's nothing outside of them that they cannot do, right? But you're trained to know that, oh, every man's got to know his limitations. But that's because you're just in the physical, but you're not looking at yourself. It's like a doctor. A doctor can't heal you. A doctor can only treat your symptoms, right? But because they're looking at you as a physical being, because you can neutralize a disease with frequencies, with sound. There's a way to neutralize chemistry, but instead they're fighting against it. Everything with them is going to war and fighting something in the body, and resistance makes stronger. The body likes to be treated soft with love, right? But no, we put these harsh drugs to fucking kill the body. You kill the bad guys, but you also killing the good guys. So you leave your body open and vulnerable for other shit for you to have to go back and depend on them, because everything is about money. That's why I feel like the root of all evil is the love of money. That's why evil is inverted living, because we put our energy and attention toward like the things that are the illusion, like money, right? Money is a great thing. I've talked to you about money. I like money. But think about this though. Gold, right, is the most valuable thing on this planet. But yet, if somebody had a bar of gold, right, that they can use to power up their technology and make things happen here, it's even worth value here on the planet. But no, what would the first thing they do? Go exchange it for cash value. You know what I'm saying? So think about that. Like, we're putting the value more on the cash rather than the actual gold. Because if somebody had a bar of gold, guaranteed they'll go exchange it for cash, right? Because you can go individually pay things with cash, but what can you do with a bar of gold? You know?
Well, if you lived in the middle of a desert, then gold will be absolutely worthless to you in comparison
Yeah,
to water.
exactly.
Water will be the currency.
Exactly.
Because water is life. So all those
That's a great point.
all that what you said, I'm in firm agreement with all that, because it's undeniable. Now, I've just finished reading David Icke's last book. I
Mhm.
asked you before, you're familiar with David Icke. You said a little bit, yeah.
No, no, no. I am familiar with David Icke.
Okay, so he's
Yeah,
wrote
I've heard of David Icke.
20 books, and the last
I
book was
think the
called
last one you asked me about was Jordan Peterson. I wasn't too familiar
Right.
with him, but I started
Oh,
to look
okay,
more
yeah.
into his stuff.
So the
Yeah.
last book David Icke wrote is called The Dream, and
Hmm.
he's speaking that we're in the dream, and the way we escape the dream is we wake up to it, we
Right.
see what's going on, we
Yeah.
see how we're having our energy siphoned off by some masters. But what he said was, he says that the entities that
Before you continue, I want you to continue. But he said, you wake up to the dream, or do you wake up from the dream? See, there's a big difference between the two.
to the dream. Wake up to
Or
the
from the
well, I
dream.
mean, it's down to interpretation
Think
again,
about it.
isn't it? Whether you wake up out of it or into it.
Exactly. You wake up to the dream, in the dream, or do you wake up from the dream?
Yeah, well, you see, it's always been my philosophy that we all we're doing is we when we exit one state of consciousness or one paradigm of consciousness, we find ourselves in another, like Russian
Mhm.
dolls. There is no
Yeah.
escaping consciousness, because that's what we are. That's what this thing is. We can shift and morph into a whole myriad states of consciousness and vibrations, but we'll always find ourselves in one of these Russian dolls. And so Ike reckons that there is something, some entity, which is operating in the astral plane, and they are siphoning off our energy, which he calls loosh, because that's what some people in the ancient times used to call it. And these are like demonic, evil things. Well, when you look at that, of course, it all fits. But what I say is, we don't need evil demons in the astral. human beings. We're capable of all that evil ourselves. And so when you look at the world, we don't need shapeshifters and archons and that. We've got fucking George Soros. We've got Bill Gates, and we've got Rothschilds, Rockefellers, and all that. Well, we don't need shapeshifting aliens, do we? If we've got them doing it. And so, they've been passing the baton, and that's how they like things. And they have made a farm of the world, and we are, to more or lesser degrees, the farmed animals. But when we wake up, we decide what we want to put in and what we want to get out, and we know whether we're being fucking used or not. And so, we become our own masters, and we then, at quite a young age, I decided that, by my hands, I'm not going to amount to very much. And so I thought, well, I'm going to do something where I can employ 20, 30, 100 pairs of other hands. And so that's what I did. And then I found myself, a few years after, laying on the beaches, just thinking about my business back in the UK, and I'm earning between £2,000 and £5,000 a day, and I'm not even there. I'm lying on the beach with my feet in the fucking water. Well, so I did in a small way what, many people have done in massive ways. And so there's all degrees of it. And so I was siphoning off the energy of lesser beings. But I had no morals about it. It's just like keeping sheep. You keep fucking sheep because what else are you going to do? What else are they going to do? And if you've got limited consciousness, then you are subject to people with higher consciousness.
Let me ask you this. So do you think this Lucius outside of yourself, or do you think this is actually you still orchestrating things behind closed doors in the astral realms?
Say again, sorry?
That Lush that you were talking about, that David Icke was talking about,
Yeah.
do you think that this is something that you are still orchestrating yourself in the astral realms, or do you think this is some outside entity out to get you as well because you're part of humanity?
Right. Well, my philosophy, this is what I wanted to get onto next, which is free will. Um, we've all heard Sam Harris talking about no free will and, for the people. Well, more and more people are getting, involved in this. And recently, Neil deGrasse Tyson, I mean, the thing is about Tyson these days, he's realized, because he's been holding these scientific venues for the past 16 years, where he's had all these scientists from all over the world asking them the questions about what's gravity, what's the black holes, what's nature, what's the Big Bang, and all this sort of stuff. And he's concluded now, but fuck, we can't answer any of these questions. We don't know anything about that. And what's the biggest question that we've all shied away from for all these years, and we've left it to the philosophers who we've always poo-pooed and said they're not scientists? Well, they're the ones that know what fucking consciousness is, or at least they've got some sort of an idea. And so what scientists are doing now, they're starting to knock on the door of the philosophers and go, tell us about this consciousness stuff, because when we do this double slit experiment, it seems that consciousness creates the manifestation of matter, and it's blown our fucking minds. And so, yes, we've got to realize that we're not in a physical world, and it's going to be very, very difficult to accept. Now, as far as I'm concerned, in the opening preamble of my book, I state that it came as quite a shock to me when I realized that I don't, in actual fact, have any free. I never did have. I only ever had the illusion of it. There's a force that's been driving me, and it drives me and you and everybody else every second of our lives. What is that? It could be archons in the astral. It could be, a manipulative, invisible vibration, conjured up from some sort of a machine from the Illuminati. There's a force, there's an energy, and we can see, with politicians and powerful people, how they are manipulating us. We can see lots of that, but it's also going on at a whole bigger level. That's just one tiny facet of it. And so, I'm always looking at the big picture. And when I go out and speaking with Mr. Nobody, he's often talking about these negative forces ruling the world. And I say, look, you've got to look bigger. You've got to go outside of human consciousness. You've got to go into cosmic consciousness. Otherwise, you'll never see the picture. Now, when you look down at the human being, what they're doing, you may as well just look at fucking ants, and go, oh,
So
why are
do
these
you?
ants doing this and doing that? There's
Mhm.
a force which is controlling the ants. And this is it, you see. This is where it gets really interesting. In this book, he talks about the morphic resonance. He talks
Mhm.
about, look, there's something that I've been involved with for many years. I was looking at ants, I was looking at flocks of birds, schools of fish, politicians and groups of people. And I'm like, there's an energy there that is driving and manipulating them. What is it? Now, when we look at ants, we can see that ants operate very, very similar to human beings. They war, they invade, they kidnap, they capture, they murder, they take slaves, they do all this shit that human beings do. I'm like, how the fucking hell do they do that? If intelligence is supposed to be premised on the size of our brain, that can't be right. So then I go, well, is it the brains of all these million little ants, or is it the brain of a cosmos? Is it the brain of a morphic field? Is it consciousness all around ants? It's the same as us. It's like Wi-Fi. You see, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years ago, they knew about Wi-Fi. They called it the Akasha. And everybody in modern times, oh, a load of bullshit. But now they believe in Wi-Fi, even though they don't have a fucking clue how it works.
Mhm.
But because someone's told them that and everybody's accepted it, they've accepted it. This whole thing is operating on some sort of a Wi-Fi. Human
Mhm.
consciousness is channeled into us and it's fed to us like we're fucking automated robots. We are not free-ranging creatures.
See, the reason I asked you that question before about is it something outside to you is because suppose it, like, considering the amount of attachments people have to what they're doing here, their family members and whatnot, suppose that there were people who did discover who and what they are, right? Do you think they would want to uh, continue living on in this realm, or do you think they would just say, fuck it, let me leave everything behind and, move on?
Yeah, yeah,
What do you think would happen?
yeah. I think lots of people would opt for the out because the only thing that keeps them in this dimension is the fear of the unknown of what's beyond. And this is what this machine, at least this human machine, does. They've burnt all the books and the libraries. They've killed all the indigenous people that knew how to build pyramids, that knew about the aliens that came from the other cosmoses and this, that, and the other, and seeded us. They knew all this. So the Catholic Church was responsible for burning and killing and murdering every fucker that knew something
You
different.
you think it would be that easy for them to just drop the ego and just basically like you know move on and just drop everything and just kind of leave their family behind and whatnot? As far as like let's say they discovered it intellectually, but they don't experience it. Like how when people say ego deaths are terrifying. They're, and again, we talked about the fear and terror and whatnot, and what that has to do with, being born again of the Father and whatnot.
Yeah.
But do you think it would really be that easy for people to just accept the truth, or they would just want to continue? Because how many people have been fed little bits of truth, yet they still continue to live their reality a certain way? You get what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, I mean, we're so heavily programmed. It's too late for us. But you see, if we have a new generation and we educate our children that there's nothing real here, it's only a dream, and this, that, and the other, then they would be much less attached than we are now, and they would find it much more easy because it would be in their state of consciousness. But even though I know that I'm a light being, and I'm consciousness, and I'm a shard of God consciousness and this, that, and the other. I look at my daughter and I'm very attached. There's a powerful thing here which keeps us enslaved ourselves. You see,
Mm-hmm.
this slavery thing, there's a whole loads of levels to it. There's levels and levels and levels of every possible thing you can think of. And so we all enslave each other. We enslave each other via our love, via our projections, via our
That's right.
guilt and demands
The,
and weaknesses and insecurities. We enslave everybody. It's like the mother of my daughter. She is
the,
almost killing herself because she has enslaved herself with a loyalty to a dead human being. She's fucking
right.
dead, only she's still standing.
Attachment, right? You
Sorry?
see that what I'm talking about? You see how
Attachment.
that attachment, and
Yeah.
they're just attached, that love, but then that love is what keeps you still attached here. It's kind of like a the tendrils, quantum entanglement. You get what
Yeah,
I'm
and
saying?
the
And it's just
irony of
you're
it is, it's
entangled.
the love that's keeping her in hell.
That's right, exactly. And they say love kills, love hurts, but love is blind. But then again, love is not bad or good. That's why people say hate is bad, but hate is not bad or good. That's why people say there's a thin line between love and hate. You can
Yep,
hate something so much that you love yourself so much, you force yourself out of that situation, but you got to become aware of the hate just as much as you got to become aware of the love that's keeping you entrapped. But a lot of it is attachment. And a lot of people form mental prisons around this attachment to physicality. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like even families, all that. I'm not, look, I love my son, but I realize that everything is a fucking trap. You know what I'm saying? All this fucking shit you get attached to is a trap,
yeah.
you know?
And
But, and here's, yeah, go ahead.
I'm gonna say when we look at this stuff, you know, I've emancipated myself from all of the family members and friends and things, and I could, I think I could quite easily pass over. I think I'm confident enough that I don't die and consciousness is going to go on forever. But what keeps me here is the attachment that I've got with my daughter, and she's got with me more to a point because she needs her dad. She needs this masculine energy in her life for the security
Absolutely.
and all this sort of
100%.
stuff. And so I could never leave her of my own will. And so that's how one of the things this keeps us,
What do you,
attached.
you're responsible for your creations, right? So like we birthday, and it's
Yeah,
not even just kids. You're responsible for your kids, but just the things that you manifest and create in your reality. That's what I'm talking about. Being the Godhead, being the author, right? You don't just you create things in existence. Do you complain about them, or do you take responsibility for the things you've created? And what do you do about it now? That's the whole thing. Hey,
yeah.
you don't mind if we wrap this up in another 10 minutes? Because if you want to talk about something else real quickly, we could. But I gotta go run an errand actually
Yeah,
in
yeah, that's
about
good. We've done
10,
2
15
hours
minutes. Yeah.
now. I'm getting a bit worried
Hmm.
myself. So no, I mean, yeah, I mean, other than free will, that
Hmm.
yeah, I was listening to Neil deGrasse Tyson, and he was speaking to Robert Sapolsky. You know that guy? He's a university lecturer. I think he's some sort of human biologist, or he's worked with baboons for 20 years of his life, and he knows all the intricacies of human and animal behavior. And he says, absolutely, we don't have an ounce of free will. Um, and how he explains it is that, well, look, we think, oh, I've got free will. I can pick this glass up and I can take a drink of it. Okay, we've got that free will, but we don't have the free will not to drink water. At some stage within the next 3 days, otherwise we risk death, you're going to have to drink water. And so, where's the free will? We've just got a bit of free will as to when, what time we do it. But is it because we're thinking about it, or is it because the body is telling us drink that water? Because the throat's dry, the body knows that it needs hydrating because the body's fucking clever, and it tells this stupid consciousness here, hey, get a glass of fucking water and get it down this neck, because this body is vastly more intelligent than you. You dumb fuck ego, and so all these things, and we talking now. It's our trajectory, what we've had on this planet, that brings us here today. There is nothing which is autonomous at all. It's all free will, and we have very, very small parameters which we can kid ourselves that we have free will. So how do you feel about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like even a better example would be somebody who's got an addiction, right? And they know they shouldn't be doing it, but again, they cave into their addictions. Um, that's a form of how do you have free will if you just continue to do what you know you shouldn't be doing? You
Yeah,
know,
and you
like
don't
you don't
want
have
to.
any control. You don't want to do it, but you still do it anyway. And
Yeah,
you're aware at the moment that you're like, fuck, I shouldn't be doing it, but you still do it. I mean, how do you have free will? You
yeah,
know, who's really in control then? You
yeah,
know, that's what I'm talking about when it comes down to, like, how in control are you of your bodily urges and emotions? And I feel like the biggest key here is balancing out the root chakra, because we talked about animals and the insects and how they're so structured and whatnot. We look at that as a blueprint, because I feel like God sleeps in the root chakra. Actually, God is in those lower
well,
realms.
the
We
serpent is
bring
supposed to be curled up, the
right.
Christos, Kundalini. It's sleeping
That's right.
waiting for the rising up, you know?
And the thing is, you got to rise it up in a balanced state. Again, we talked about masculine, feminine polarity, because the heart's the gateway. But there's people who raise this energy up, but they become super intellectual. But instead of becoming a balanced spiritual person, they're just a more evolved, egotistical human. You get what I'm saying? Like, they're not really somebody who's out to look at everything outside of themselves as themselves. They're looking at it as, I'm better than everybody. So they do this whole virtue signaling thing, and start pointing fingers still the same way, just in a more evolved way. You know what I'm saying? They're just more intelligent. But that's the form of artificial intelligence I'm talking about. You wake up the artificial intelligent body, but you're not aware that even doing that, you're still not really in control of anything. This is just
Yeah,
your ego trying to express itself a certain way, and you're catering to that ego. You know what I'm
yeah.
saying? The
Yeah.
ego is basically the illusion.
It's absolutely fascinating. And so I've got so many books that I'm going to continue to write now for the rest of my life, because
That's good.
every one of our subjects, we could go on forever and ever and
We
ever.
can go on forever. Exactly.
It's
Yeah, and
just,
take notes, because those are good topics to really get into. If you really sit down, see, I sometimes write things, and I notice I experience something called ghostwriting. And
yeah,
I mean, I'm just writing, and it just
yeah.
happens. It's just boom, 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 and then later on I read it. I'm like, this is fucking brilliant. This is pretty
Well,
fucking good. But I felt like I didn't even fucking write it. I forget I wrote it.
exactly. Well, that's the peculiar thing, and I've listened to so many authors, and I've experienced it myself. When I'm reading back
Mhm.
my book, I'm like, who the fuck wrote this? You know,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
while I'm writing it, I'm like, I'm not writing this book because I don't know what I'm going to be saying next. And every time I
yeah,
went to the computer, it's kind of like, oh, I've got to do some writing because I've got to get this fucking book finished. Well, what book? I don't know. The fucking book, the cosmos is telling me
yeah,
to write. I better
yeah,
fucking do
yeah,
it. It's laborious. It's taking me 4 or 5 hours every day. I don't want to do this for the rest of my fucking life. Got to get it
yeah,
done. When's it going to be finished? And I didn't know. I didn't know how long it was going to be. I didn't know when I was going to finish. I just have to come to the computer and do it until one day all of a sudden, oh, it's fucking finished.
yeah.
But
As
that's
long as it's
only
coming
that
from a
one.
if it's coming from a root balance chakra, then you're basically coming at it from a balanced perspective, right? Because a lot of times there could be, you don't ever know where you're channeling either. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Sometimes you're channeling, you're writing, you're towing, you're doing videos, but it's still coming from an imbalanced state. And that's coming out of like imbalanced ground, whatever you're projecting. You know what I'm saying? So that's why sometimes I look at animals, and animals, you could observe animals. Animals are very in competition with each other. Humans are in competition with each other, but a balanced human would know that there's really no competition, because even what we just talked about, what is the illusion? Lack is an illusion, right? Everything is basically abundant. You can
yeah,
have an abundance of lack, but you can't. Can you have a lack of abundance? No, right? So
yeah,
it's like you can only look at it from the space of infinite, because everything is infinite. You can have an abundance of like infinite. It's there's no lack, you know.
yeah.
But
So,
when
so
you're in
what?
competition, when you're looking at things outside of you and something outside, and that's imbalance.
And when we
What were you
look
gonna say?
at, 8, billion people and that they all have their own perspective and they all live in their own world, there's 8 billion worlds only in relation to the human beings going on here, let alone squirrels and all different sorts of animals. There's just a
That's right.
myriad of
That's right.
lives and universes and cosmoses going on. This is an unfathomable, incredible, magical mystery tour. And I just jump with joy every single day at the amount of things we can pick from. I'm like a kid in the sweet shop, only my
Yeah.
sweet shop is like the size of fucking New York. I'll
Yeah.
never get around to all the shops and sampling all the things.
Yeah.
It's just really incredible. So, well, okay, we'll wrap this one up now. It's been a wonderful conversation, Ziggy. Really
Yeah.
enjoyed
Very,
it,
very good,
as
man.
always.
Yeah, you know what I want to talk about the next time we talk? Let's get into the Anunnaki and the whole gold. And I'm gonna tell you something right now. I was meditating on this topic, and just the whole aspect of gold, the gold bars and whatnot,
Right.
and you know how you got the word gold, you got the word the L, and you take that L out, and you know L is a masculine
Yep.
word, Elohim, and then you got the word L for masculine, but you take that L out, you got the word God. But we have gold in our system. I want to make sure I cover that as far as conductivity, as far as authority. You see the capstones on the pyramid, the old Sinai, gold. I'm telling you,
The
man, that's a fucking
Anunnaki
great topic for
coming
us to get into.
to enslave human beings or
Who the
live
fuck are
in
the
the UK.
Anunnaki? Who are the Nephilim and all that bullshit
Yeah, yeah,
that you
yeah.
know that we've heard about? I want to get into that, but yeah, I enjoy our topic, our conversation, man. You know, and if I dissect you sometimes, I mean that's just me trying
Love
to
it,
get.
man.
You know, but a lot of people online, they're fucking pansies. They think that we're debating, you know, and I'm like, we're not fucking debating, bro. There's like fucking conversation and discussions, but sometimes it would be whack to see two people just consistently agreeing with each other. It's good to
Yeah,
sometimes look at
there's no joy in that, and you
things.
know, one of the greatest assets, you know, I have in you is that you do challenge me, you do question me, because
Mhm.
that's what I'm here for. I want to be questioned, I want to be challenged, I want to question myself. You know,
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
said to you, I don't believe anything I'm fucking saying
No,
because I can
that's
think
why
of a myriad other things which you know could be.
do the same do the same thing with me. You know what I'm saying? If you
Yeah,
find a way to challenge me, do it. I am gonna fucking be all open for that shit. I'm
yeah,
telling you, because I'm not polarized to a goddamn thing, and I'm not. You see, that's the whole thing. I'm not my information. You know what I'm saying? I
right.
have a position. I have a stance. I'm a human playing this game right now. So yeah, I'm gonna have a topic of discussion to talk about. But if you challenge me in a way that gets me thinking, it'll appear to the average eye, oh man, yo, he lost that debate. But it's not really a losing or a gain. Because you see, if I'm in my ego, yeah, I'm gonna be like, fuck, I lost that discussion. But in actuality, I really learned because I won
So
because I
you won.
actually learned something. I
Yeah,
learned something.
that's
You
right.
put me onto something, which means you I was in the dark about something. You lit me up and put me in the light about something. It's a win-win, bro. But
Yeah.
people are fucking retarded. I'm telling you,
I
it's
just don't
pissing me
get that
off.
mentality where people always have got to consider something a battle and someone's winning and someone's
No, it's not,
losing
man. It's
and
just
all this sort.
stupid because they get
Look,
lost in that.
you know,
That's the negative energy. That's the drama.
yeah,
They
we
get
don't
lost in that
own.
negativity, bro.
I can't lay ownership to any of my thoughts. I've got no idea where they come from, and so I can't even say the mine. I don't know what mine is. All I know that I'm
Hmm.
conscious. I seem to be living in the world, in the cosmos, and it's all me, and it's all beautiful. And you know, I just fucking love every single day of it. And so,
That's right. Just enjoy it, right? Fuck. Follow your bliss.
yeah,
Follow your bliss.
yeah. Follow the bliss, man.
Hey,
Okay,
man,
cool.
it was a
So
pleasure,
yeah,
bro.
just hit me up there next time you're ready, then, Ziggy, and we'll do
I
it
say we
again.
say to do it in a few days, man. I want to definitely talk about that Anunnaki topic, so we definitely got to cover that in a few days.
Yeah, yeah.
We always come up whenever we don't think about shit. We just come up with it, and we have the best topics out of that. So,
That's right.
but
You
yeah,
know, as in plan, no
we'll
subjects picked. We just fucking get into it, and that's how it is. Yeah.
I'm gonna end the recording now. All right,
Okay, mate.
everybody. We'll talk soon.